Okay, greetings everyone. Sorry about that. We were still handling Prof. Ravinder's issue with the internet and everything. But we're gonna continue now with our meeting or our session. I would like to welcome everyone on ASCA's Research Support Webinar Series, our 12th live session 2021. I believe that everyone is excited to be here today for this wonderful session. My name is Vinolia. I'm the Marketing and Communication Coordinator. Before we start, I would like to take you through our housekeeping rules. Firstly, I'm going to request all of you to please be on mute to avoid background noise. And you can write your questions and your comments in the chat box. And also, if you'd like to present your own question, you can do that after the presentation by raising your hand, and then you'll be recognized. Let's please adhere to the rules as we continue. Today, we do have our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is Professor Dr. Ravinder Rena, who is a profound academician and distinguished scholar in economics, writer, editor, advisor, motivational speaker, and public intellectual with over 29 years of teaching and research experience in Asia, Pacific, Africa, and European continents. Prof. Rena is currently working as a professor of economics at the NWU Business School, Northwest University, South Africa. He also serves as an adjunct professor of economics for master's and doctorate programs at Monarch Business School, Monarch University, Heijden, Zug at Switzerland. Professor Rena earned his PhD from the Department of Economics, Osmania University, Hyderabad in India, with the achievement of the University Gold Medal for the best PhD candidate thesis in the field of economics, commerce, business management. He obtained his MA, BEd, MPhil, PhD from Osmania University and BA and LLB from Kakatiya University, Warangal in India. He serves as the chairman of the panel of judges for economics of the Global Undergraduate Award based in Dublin, Ireland, United Kingdom. He also wrote 10 books and published more than 130 articles in reputed national and international peer-reviewed journals and 35 books chapters to his credit. He is the founding editor-in-chief of an international journal of education, economics, and development, and associate editor of the African Journal of Science, Technology, Innovation, and Development, which are IBSS and Scopus indexed journals published by IndaScience UK and Taylor and Francis UK, respectively. He also serves as an editorial board member for many reputed journals. He is also a keynote speaker or resource person for more than 100 national and international conferences in Europe, America, Africa, and Asian continents. He supervised over 60 PhDs, MPhils, and master's theses and dissertations across the globe. He served many academic and professional committees as a chairman and as a panel member. He is also been an external examiner or moderator for masters and PhD of different universities in Africa, Europe, Asian, America, and also Australia. Let's all welcome Professor Ravinder Rena amongst us. Thank you, Prof. You can now continue.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a proud privilege for me always to be part and parcel of the Africa Institute of Supply Chain Research Consortium. And I must thank Professor Ambe Marcus, the president of the association, and Vinolia for the generous introduction about me, and the participants from South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, and many other African countries, particularly the students who are doing their masters and the PhDs and so on, or maybe vibrant and young emerging researchers. So this is, I think, I've been associated with the institute for quite some time, and this could be my third or fourth presentation for the institution for the past 1.5 years. Well, I always, love to speak and share some of my views with the young and emerging researchers from African continent, because African continent is always underreported. And today's topic is that, ladies and gentlemen, getting started with research sampling and selecting samples. So that is the topic that I was given to speak about. And so let us try to understand what is all about this sampling, and what is the best sample and how we can collect the sample, what is the acceptable sample. And so those are some of the highlights I would like to touch upon. And so without wasting much time, ladies and gentlemen, in any research scenario, the sample become a very important issue to conduct the research, because if you would like to conduct the research, now the population of the world is getting close to 7.9 billion people. It is next to impossible, even if we take 100 or 200 years to reach these 5.9 billion people, to collect any kind of samples from them. Unless otherwise, it is impossible for us to collect the data from the entire population. So therefore, we just depend upon the sample size. Now, what would be the acceptable sample size, and how that can be demarcated, and what are the different types of samples that we have? So that is basically we're going to look at today. Now, we have so many issues. Now, even in African continent, if we look at the population size, we are getting close to 1.2 to 1.3 billion people. If you would like to conduct a study, maybe how many people are unemployed, or how many people are earning what amount of money, how many of them are farmers, and how many of them are in the schools, colleges, and the universities, it takes decades and decades. So we don't have the luxury of the time. We don't have the luxury of the resources. We don't have the luxury of the money that is needed to conduct the study. So research is always an expensive exercise. It is not a simple task that you can just sit with a desktop and you can try to develop some kind of samples and maybe do the research and desktop research basically, and try to write some research papers, or maybe master's dissertation or a PhD thesis and so on. So therefore, it is a rigorous process, and we need to comply with so many things. And it's not one thing at a time, but there are many things that one has to consider. So for instance, now the whole world has been experiencing with the COVID-19. For the past 1.5 years down the line, we got COVID cases that are rising up rapidly. And now we reached a mark of 200 million people got infected by the virus for the past 16 to 17 months time. Now, out of these 200 million people across the globe, more than 200 countries across the globe, they got infected. And then about 4.5 million people got killed by the virus. Now, how do we identify this? Are we going to reach these 4.5 million people or the 200 million people population who got infected? It is next to impossible for any kind of biggest and richest and capable research organizations such as World Bank or International Monetary Fund, OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, Africa Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, and South African Reserve Bank, or any kind of institutions. It is next to impossible for us to have a large sample size. So therefore, in the research methodology, sample become a very important segment. Now, how to collect the sample and what is this sample is all about? So that is what we're going to touch upon. Now, for example, out of these 200 million people got infected across the globe, and America is the largely infected country with close to 36 million people got infected only in America, ladies and gentlemen. Now, India is the second country, close to 32 million people infected in those countries. How are we going to sensitize? How are we going to collect the samples? How many people died with those viruses? It is it is absolutely impossible for us to make a kind of assessment. So because there are people living in rural areas, and those who do not know anything that they got infected by COVID, but they passed away with COVID, if we do not know that they are probably infected by COVID, they died, then it is impossible for us to say that COVID deaths are only 4.5 million people. Now in India, for instance, we got close to 430,000 people died of the COVID, and in America, more than 615,000 people died. So countries like Brazil and Russia, these are the countries that are in the top list. Now, when you talk to when you look into the African continent picture, and Africa, although we got less than 7 million people got infected, and maybe less than probably 300,000 people died across the continent. But now the challenge here is that, so we're talking about 1.3 billion people one side, and then the other side, we're talking about the number of infected cases in Africa and also number of death cases in Africa, which is in any standard, in any global standard, and the number of infected cases are very, very less in African continent, ladies and gentlemen. And at the same time, number of death cases also very, very less. Now, if you look at France and South Africa share the same amount of population, about 60 million in South Africa, and by and large 60 to 63 million in France. France got more than 6 million people got infected closely. And the number of people died is also more than 100 plus thousand people. Whereas in the same population size of South Africa, for instance, we got about 2.5 million people got infected, and closely about 72,000 people died. So I'm just giving you this background information about the COVID phenomena. We have got Ebola, we got so many other diseases and pandemics keep coming from time to time. Now, how do we select the samples? And the sample is becoming a very pertinent issue here. And if somebody, now the vaccination is started, vaccination drive, we got Pfizer, we got Johnson & Johnson, we got Sinopharm, we got so many other vaccination they have started. In order to test the vaccine, and what must we do? What is the appropriate sample that we can use? So this is the biggest challenge. Now, all these pharmaceutical companies across the globe, and they are trying to identify some of the volunteers who can able to come forward themselves, and then they could able to take the vaccination, and they wanted to make the experiment. They cannot make the experiment on the rats, they cannot make experiment on the rabbits, or probably any other animals, pigs and so on and so forth. Normally, when we do the experiments, that's what we use. Those are the animals that are, unfortunately, we use them, we kill them also, when we are experimenting. But now the vaccination issue here, there are a lot of people for the past 6 months or 8 months, there are a lot of volunteers, they come forward to get the kind of testing vaccination. And some people, they died, and some people, so I'm not going to talk much about those issues here, because we got limited time and we need to cover a lot of portion of the sampling techniques. So I'm trying to tell you that what would be the acceptable sample? Now, for instance, in South Africa, for the past few months, we've been vaccinating on average about 250,000 people per day. And closely in about 3.5 days to 4 days, we aim to get a vaccination for about 1 million people. So that is the kind of target. Now, how do we test, for example, whether Pfizer and the Johnson & Johnson, which is the effective vaccination? Now, how do we test that? How are we going to create the sample size for that? So these are some of the challenges that we're going to face with the Department of Health and so many other research institutions in the country and across the globe. They're also facing the similar challenges. Now, what is the acceptable size? Can we take 100 people, or can we take 25 people, or can we take 5,000 people? Which would be the acceptable sample size? So these are some of the challenges and questions most of the researchers and scientists across the globe, they ask themselves. So let me take you with some of the samples. Now, we do have, let's say, for instance, if in order to get this, what do we call the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, when they make the testing, Then they identified that 65% success rate, whereas for Pfizer is 95% success rate. So this is all depends upon the samples that they collected, and the efficiency, the efficacy has been measured. And that's how they come to that kind of understanding and indication that then they say that no, Pfizer is having 95% effective rate in terms of controlling the pandemic. So this is what is happening. And it's still, we are in trial and error basis. So in South Africa, we got about 3 million people got vaccinated. Now, at least in order to cover, and by and large, about 67% of the population, it will take a lot of time for us. And a country like India, now with sitting with more than 1.3 billion people, in order to vaccinate all the people, it takes more than 20 years actually. So even if they, exert the drive vaccination rollout plans on a very accelerating period manner, but still it will take a lot of time to vaccinate all the people. So it's not easy. Now we need to vaccinate at least, sorry about that. We need to vaccinate at least, according to the WHO, we can vaccinate at least 65% of the population, then we can relax. And some of the European countries, maybe a country like Israel, also vaccinated in some of the towns, and then the people start moving without having any kind of mask and without taking precautions. So those are some of the issues pertaining to the sample selections that we look at. Now let me take you to the telecom SA, for example. We do have so many customers that are using telecom services, whether it could be internet band, or it could be landline services. I guess landline services is provided by and large, maybe Telecom SA is monopolizing in that. Now, in order to test the customer satisfaction survey, if we have, let's say, over 2 million customers in South Africa using all these telecom related or maybe other service providers such as Vodacom, MTN, and Cell C, and probably Virgin Active and so on and so forth. Now, if you wanted to talk, for instance, Telecom SA, now you wanted to test how many customers they satisfied with the bandwidth service that they're providing. They're providing 4 Mbps per second. They're providing 10 Mbps per second. They're providing 20 Mbps per second. The people, those who are getting the service of 4 Mbps, they are the one who always frustrate with the services. Then how do you test? These are the number of people that are, you cannot go and reach, let's say, 2 million people across the country. It is impossible, and it is absolutely an expensive process. And Telecom SA doesn't have money, resources, and the manpower to conduct the research. So 2 million is the population size. Let's say they are the customer base. And from 2 million, what is the acceptable sample size? So this is the fundamental question that most of us, we struggle to understand. Let us say, ladies and gentlemen, if it is a quantitative research, what is the acceptable sample size? If it is a qualitative research, what is the acceptable sample size? So these are some of the probably kind of, thoughts that always keep coming in the minds of all these researchers, including some of the professors, associate professors, senior lecturers, or maybe honors students. Everybody get this kind of ideas. Even some of my PhD students also ask on regular basis that what is the acceptable sample size? Ladies and gentlemen, if it is a qualitative study, even 5, some of the rated researchers, they say that 5 is also an acceptable kind of sample size, provided you prepare a questionnaire and you collect the data, and then you say that when you reach the saturation point, that you are getting the same information from remaining other people, then that's where you stop. So once you reach the saturation point with the 5 people also, that is still an acceptable sample size for the qualitative studies. 30, we say normally 30 would be an ideal number, and even 50 or 100 is also, so meaning that the minimum could be 5 and the maximum could be 100 in terms of the qualitative studies. So these are the perspectives that we are collecting. These are the different opinions that we are collecting, and we try to code, we try to decode, and we try to make the analysis from that. Now, we do have a population size every year in South Africa or rest of the world, in every African country. we do have a population census. A population census that we conduct for every 10 years period. Because even country like America, being the largest economy and the richest economy in the world, it cannot afford to pay for the census on 5 years basis, on 3 years basis. So they have to do only the 10 years basis population kind of census. Now, if you take 60 million people in South Africa, or 31 million people in America, or maybe close to 100 and maybe 1,380 million people in India. Now, are we going to collect the data from all these people living there? It is absolutely impossible. So therefore, we try to look at the sample size. If the sample size, a country like China, which has got 1.4 billion people, country like India is also getting close to 1.4 billion people. Now, what is the acceptable size of sample in our national sample survey in India? And we also got a Center for Monitoring and Evaluation of Economy is also another kind of research institute. So these are the institutions, if they wanted to conduct any study on expenditure or the revenue or the tax or the debt related or household debt related, any kind of issues that they would like to conduct the study, they have to stick to the minimum sample size. Now, what would be the minimum sample size here? The sample size, ladies and gentlemen, is 10%. Let's say that we got 20,000 people, or maybe 200,000 people, let's say. 200,000 people, 10% of 200,000 would be how much? It's about 20,000 people. Now, in order to conduct a study, a PhD student, he wants to conduct a study on unemployed youth who has got unemployed after their graduation. Some of the graduates who got actuarial science degree or engineering degree, or probably, even health sciences degree, they're also still unemployed. That is an unfortunate thing. Now, you wanted to conduct the study. Let us say, for argument's sake, we got 200,000 people who has got bachelor degrees. They are unemployed. Now, you wanted to reach these people. A PhD student who doesn't have any scholarship or doesn't have any kind of funding, and he cannot able to reach those 200,000 people. Now, if I say 10% is the acceptable sample size, but can this person could able to reach the 10%, which is 20,000 people? It is absolutely impossible. Even it takes about 8 to 10 years period to reach those people and do the job and to the reasonable job, but that will be a quite expensive exercise for the researcher or to the PhD student. Neither the university nor the NRF scholarships nor any other scholarship could able to cover those excessive costs that are going to be incurred by the researcher. So then what we can do, how we can mitigate or minimize that 20,000 to an acceptable sample size. So ladies and gentlemen, we can say that maybe 1,000 number would be an acceptable sample size. So that one can think about that 1,000, if a student would like to select the people from 200,000, that is the population size, and then we look at the subset. The subset, that is the sample size that we wanted to collect. And then that subset, if we take 10% of that, that would be 20,000. But from 20,000, you can just try to take 1,000, that is acceptable sample size. I think that's what I would like to mention about. This is the population is always big. And as I was been telling you from the beginning that it is the money, it is the time. It is the resources, there could be even personnel that can assist you. And if it's a larger sample size, how are we going to process that large sample size? So these are some of the practical problems that we are going to face on the ground. So let me take you to the, this is the population that you can see on our left-hand side, the population. Let's say this is the 200,000 population. And from 200,000, we have taken a sample frame of about 1,000. So that is a kind of acceptable sample size. Now, this is how the same picture, but with a different kind of mode, the population, larger populations, we can always try to bring them down to a smaller amount of population that can be easily manageable. Now, the other question comes here that if we have a smaller sample size, how much our research is going to be representative, how much the research is going to be valid. And validity and reliability, these are the two important issues in the research arena. We need to address them. If the research is not valid, if the research is not reliable, then there's no point of depending upon that research. It is like any other information that can be available in the world of web. There are so many billions and billions of information is available, but most of the information, they are not trustworthy information. We cannot rely upon that information. It's not scientific. It's not fact-based. So it is more like opinion-based. So therefore, we need to have validity and reliability. These are the two issues that we need to think about. Now, how are we going to achieve this validity and reliability issues? That is the question. Of course, we have the Cronbach alpha testing, and we got different other tests. There have been Watson tests, and there are many other tests that we conduct to have the kind of reliability and validity areas that we comply with. But now, if the larger the sample size, the more representative it is going to be. But the smaller the sample size, it is less representative. With the conclusions that we are going to draw upon, we cannot generalize them because of the size that we chose. Now, we're going to talk about different types of probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Within the probability, we got 4 types. Within the non-probability also, we got 4 types. We will try to touch upon some of the key issues of that. In the interest of time, I think, so I will quickly run. So representativeness, this is what I was telling about, how representative. The sample should be the best representative of the population under study. Now, a 60 million population, if the South African government is conducting a Statistics South Africa is conducting a study on the income and expenditures survey, how the people during this pandemic time, how they are spending the money, and how much they could able to save from their money, what is their debt, and if they wanted to conduct, how many people got unemployed, or 3 million people got unemployed. Now, the bracket there, yesterday there was a study that was released by one of the UCT related organization. It was showing that probably about 1 year ago, the number of people who are earning the top range of income in the country, they were at more than 1 year ago, they were plus minus 800,000 people. That means the people, those who are earning 75,000 Rand and above salaries in South Africa, their number is found to be 800,000 people, less than 1 million, ladies and gentlemen. Now that number recently, probably a few weeks ago, it came down to 400,000 people. So one can imagine that only some of the professors, deans, directors, and vice chancellors, so those are the people, they are earning, maybe general managers, CEOs, this and that. All of them together, they are about 400,000 people in the whole country. And they are the people who are paying probably about 44, 45% of the total tax in the country. So meaning that half of this, almost 100% decline from the number of people from 800,000 to 400,000. So 400,000 people are the top end, at the top bracket, that they are getting more than 75,000 gross amount in the country. So now the point here is that if we could able to meet 400,000 people, it is impossible. Now, what would be the actual size we can look at? Maybe 1,000 would be appropriate, as I indicated to you just now. From 400,000, if we take 10% of that, it will be 40,000. That is still very high for any kind of research organization to conduct a study for 40,000 people. Is absolutely impossible. Even whether you talk about the SARS, South African Revenue Service, or the Ministry of Finance, could able to face that size. If you want a lifestyle, how that lifestyle has been impacted or affected by this corona pandemic over a period of time. Now, what they are doing, how they are spending their money. if you would like to conduct a study, now what would be the appropriate size? You get 500 sample size, maybe 1,000 sample size, that would be acceptable. So therefore, the accuracy is also one of the important issue, that the study that we are conducting must be accurate enough, ladies and gentlemen. It cannot be, that is why we say it is a science. It is like science like physics, science like botany, science like geology, science like chemistry. Research is not simply like arts and social sciences, where we simply, although we say sociology or geography, all these studies, or anthropology, we may say it's an opinion-based study, but still it is like a science, because we look at the representativeness, we look at the accuracy, we look at the size. The good sample size must be adequate in size and reliability. So, because ultimately we need to pass the reliability test. If you wanted to use the Cronbach-Alpha testing method, and if the result is not less than, if it is less than, let's say 0.70, then we failed the test. The reliability test is failed. So therefore, we need to look into these kind of issues, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me take you to we do have broadly, the samples can be divided into two categories, the probability and the non-probability. Within the probability sampling, we got simple random sampling, number one, stratified random sampling, number two, cluster sampling is also three. There's also one more sampling method, but yeah, so just like maybe we try to focus on these sampling methods. Now, as part of the non-probability sampling method, we got purposive, we got quota sampling, we got convenience sampling. We also got probably, there are a couple of other snowball sampling and so on and so forth, but basically it is based upon the convenience of the researcher, based upon the adequate availability of the data sources, and based upon the resources that a particular researcher possesses. So these are some of the things that can look at, but that is basically non-probability sampling. So let me take you to the next slide, ladies and gentlemen. So let me take you to quickly, this is the same thing that I explained to you. Okay. Now the probability sampling method, let's say it involves a random selection. When we randomly select, the researcher does not have any control over the variables and the data sets. If there is a control, there could be a possibility of biasness. There could be a possibility of manipulation of the research probably data and the data sets and so on and so forth. So if we influence or if we try to manipulate them, then whatever results that we are going to obtain, it will be failing the reliability test. That is why some of the researchers, when they collect the data through their questionnaire and through their interview schedules, interview guides, and when they put the data in SPSS package, now we are trying to test the reliability issues, how reliable the data is. Then most of the students, they fail, and then they struggle to pass the test, because by and large, the answers of the different participants, they look alike. They look, either they are impartial or they are trying to partially they fulfill the data, and they sometimes they provide the same information again and again. So those are some of the challenges. Now let us not go into the details of that, ladies and gentlemen. So probability sampling, as I indicated to you with a figure of just now, that it has got maybe 3-4 types: the simple random sampling, clustered sampling, and systematic sampling. This is what I was trying to tell you earlier, and the stratified sampling. So let me quickly go into that because we didn't have enough time. We are almost half an hour. So non-probability sampling, that involves non-random selection based on convenience other than the criteria that we follow. So like I said that, some of the students, even our PhD students or our master students, we encourage them to conduct the research on their own organizations where they are currently working, because it's a convenient sampling actually. The moment when you choose a different organization, the organization may not be cooperative for you to provide the necessary information. Then you're stuck there. Then you are not going to complete your study. Now for masters and PhD, we have got the time frame between 2 to 4 years or 5 years time. If you stuck with one organization, then you keep on moving to other organization and you also experience the same thing. So research will become next to impossible, or it's a difficult process. Therefore, we encourage the students to go with their own organization, their own units of analysis. And that's what most of the people they conduct nowadays. Now that is where the non-random sampling, method that they are using, because it's based upon more convenience criteria than the criteria that is set forth for the research actually. So this is basically we got, as I indicated to you just now, that convenience sampling and judgmental or purposive sampling, the snowball and quota sampling. So let me take to the choosing between probability and non-probability samples, which would be the appropriate thing for us. So if we look at that, ladies and gentlemen, we need to look at what are the objectives of our research proposal. What is the scope of that study? And what is the method of our data collection? Are we using the quantitative methods or qualitative methods or mixed methods? And what is the precision of the results? What is the availability of the sample frame and the resources required to maintain the frame? Actually, as I was telling you from the beginning, that resources always scarce. Even people like Bill Gates or the Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, those are the richest people on the planet, but resources also scarce for them. So therefore, the sample size should be depending upon the, that kind of resources, time, money, and so on. Now, availability of the extra information, which is and the members of the population, because sometimes if one wants to conduct the study on diabetics in South Africa, how many people are diabetics within the colored community, white community, Indian community, and the Black community? Then if they wanted to conduct, some people, they may not be willing to take part in the survey. So there are lots of limitations. Therefore, when we are voluntarily going to take part, because remember that it is the ethical process. All our South African universities, we need to pass through the ethical clearance, and we should acquire the ethical clearance number before you contact the particular organization or particular participant to conduct this research. So that otherwise it is going to be non-ethical. So therefore, there are so many issues pertinent and related to this sample size, selection, data collection, and so on and so forth. So ladies and gentlemen, let me run through that. We know how many minutes do I still have?
Yes, we do.
Let me try to.
Yes.
Okay, should I take another 15, 20 minutes? Is it fine?
Yes, definitely.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, let us look at what is the probability sampling, how the probability sampling looks like. The probability sampling is normally preferred when conducting major studies, especially when population frame is available, ensuring that we can select and contact each unit in the population. So there's a possibility that everybody get a chance randomly selected. And probability sampling allows us to quantify the standard errors of estimates, confidence intervals, 95% confidence interval that we can look at, and hypothesis testing also can be looked into, and hypothesis can be formally tested. Now, hypothesis, what is this hypothesis here? It is the tentative solution suggested to a problem. So that is what is the hypothesis actually. So with the random sampling, it is possible for us to test the hypothesis as well. Now, what are the main disadvantages of the probability sampling method? This is the first, method of the sampling. Now, there would be a disadvantage is bias in selecting the sample and the costs involved in the survey. Now, as I said to you that our students cannot afford to do their master's degree, PhD degree, or probably honors and other degrees, because obviously it is an expensive process. Now, if you do not spend enough money to conduct the research, then you can always be easily biased also. So sometimes some of the students, they will try to play some gimmicks. They try to find some shortcut methods. They collect the data, they create their own data, which is a wrong process actually. So in order to save the time, in order to save the resources, they create their own data. That is why such studies, they fail the reliability tests. Because you as an individual, you cannot think like 100 different people. So that is why one has to be careful that, ladies and gentlemen, we got so many research students, PhD and master students. Please be careful. Try to do the honest literature survey and honest data collection to the extent possible. Don't prepare your own data. Even if you face 1,000 problems, but still try to maintain that kind of honesty. Now, as part of the probability sampling, the first method, we got 4 methods, as I told you, that the first method is the simple random sampling technique. This is the best random sampling technique because everybody, if we got 100 samples, 100 people, they will get a chance randomly because anybody can be picked up, just like Lotto, like a lottery. If 1 million people buy tickets and 1 million people, if they are randomly picking up one, then 1 million people, they got chance actually, because we are randomly selecting. We are not identifying that, okay, we are not stratifying, stating that, okay, some people we take maybe from Indian community, from Black community, and from colored community and white community. And within that, we will also look into the regions that we have, provinces that we have, Northwest province or Northern Cape province or Limpopo or Mpumalanga, Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. So we're not looking into that. We're randomly picking up one person. That means if the sample is 100, and if you randomly pick up one, that everybody who is in that particular pool, they got a chance to win. So that's how it is. Therefore, this observation is normally given an equal probability or equal opportunity for the selection for all the people that they are sitting with that particular sample size. So every possible sample of a given size has the same probability of being selected. That's what I was trying to tell you. One possible method of selecting a simple random sampling is to number each unit on the sampling frame is sequentially and make the selections by generating numbers from the random number generator. Whether it could be even in the SABC also, we see a lot of kind of games that they look at that, they kind of playing the balls, and then if one ball is picked up by the machine, and that is randomly picked up. So that is how it is. It's a simple random sampling. It can be recommendable. It can be, most of the researchers, those who are depending upon the quantitative study, and they can depend upon the random sampling technique. So let me take you to the example. For instance, we look at the 20 needs to be collected, or 20 sample size need to be collected from the 100. Now, the 20 members randomly we select. We don't use any age, we don't use gender, we don't use region, religion, or any other factors, any other variables. We randomly select those 20 people. So this is the simple random sampling method. As you can see that sometimes we can even ask them to stand 1 to 100, then we randomly select, okay, 1 to 10, we take 8 is one sample. And then 10 to 20, we take number 19. Or maybe 21 to 30, we take 21. So any kind of thing randomly we try to pick up and we try to separate and we create that as a sample group. So there's no bias that is going to take place here, ladies and gentlemen. And let me move to the next, the advantages and disadvantages also. The minimum sampling bias, that is the advantage. And the selection of the sample is simple. That is why we say it is a simple random technique. It is not complex, it's not complicated. It is a simple process that because we are not looking at anybody's face, we are looking at the numbers that we have, we're randomly picking up one. So therefore, that is also an advantage. The results can be generalized and it is going to be more representative because of the fact that it is randomly selected. There is nobody make a kind of influence. Nobody can have any kind of bias. So that is the advantage. And the disadvantage was that simple random technique, ladies and gentlemen, the potential availability of all respondents can be costly and time consuming. Because larger sample size also, we cannot able to reach them. So these are some of the issues that we have, ladies and gentlemen. Then let me just move on to the next systematic sampling. And so this is systematically. Now, those people who born in August month is considered in South Africa as a women's month. So those women who were born in August, we can try to select only those people from 1st of August to 31st of August. So this is a kind of manner that systematically we try to identify such people, and we can also select the samples. So ladies and gentlemen, let me, in the interest of time, we got so much information. I got more than 50 slides, but it would be difficult for me to go through one by one. Let me take you quickly through the, so this is the way that we can conduct the systematic sample. As I told you, out of 100, if you wanted to select 20, that is, this is how, this is the systematic sample. So any criteria that you can apply. You can look at the size, the height of the people, let's say. Those people who are the height of maybe 5.5, we will separate them. Only those who are taking 5.5 height, they can be separated, and the study can be conducted if height is the criteria. Or those we can also use age as a criteria. We can use maybe the date of birth as a criteria. We can use maybe ethnic group as a criteria. So there are many criteria that we can use, and systematically we can try to create the samples, ladies and gentlemen. So let me quickly move. This is the stratified sampling. We can create stratas. As stratas, like I said, it could be any kind of strata. We can look at the strata, those people who completed their bachelor's degree, one strata. Those people who completed their, let's say, diploma or master's degree or MBA degree. Exclusively, if we look at the MBA degree people, then we can also look into the MBA degree. Then we can also collect that strata. So we can create stratas based upon such kind of things. So let me just, so for example, this is the table that one can look into that maybe in town one. Let's say in Gauteng, we got Pretoria, we got Johannesburg, we got maybe closely, there are so many other smaller towns. From town one, the population size is, let's say 1,200, and then we are going to take about 38% of the population. So 38% of 1,200 would be 129, and so on and so forth. Town 9 is relatively smaller population, about 900 people, and we are reducing 10% less than the previous one, that is 28%, that would be 97. So this is how the strata hypothetical table can be created, and so on and so forth. Let me take you to the cluster. So this is the advantage, disadvantages are been given. The cluster sampling as part of the, we can also create the clusters. The clusters, it could be again age group, or it can be ethnic group, or it can be region, it can be maybe the income bracket, or any kind of clusters we can also create, ladies and gentlemen. So this is how the clusters, the steps that are going to be involved in that. Now we can move further quickly. So these are the non-probability. So far we discussed about the probability random sampling probability method, and these are the non-probability method that we got, convenience method that I indicated to earlier, and we have got the probably quota sampling. So we can fix the quota. Like town 1, in the previous table that we looked at, town 1 we got 1,200 people, town 2 we got 900 people. So depend upon that quota, then we can try to, every province, we got 9 provinces in South Africa, every province population is different. Now Gauteng population, though it is the smallest province in the country, but the population is bigger. Now we have to fix the quota for that. So like that we can have the quota sampling, and then I'm not going to details about the quota sampling, the advantages and the disadvantages one can able to read on their own. And let me look at the judgmental purpose of sampling. It is purposefully a sample has been selected based upon the convenience, based upon the purpose of the study, and so on and so forth. But this is, again, the researcher is going to be biased. So that is why studies such as this are studies that are depending upon the purpose of sampling, convenience sampling, they may not be reliable, or they may not be representative. The results that we obtain from that may not be representative, or we cannot draw a conclusion from that. So I think snowball sampling is also one of the methods that we use as part of the non-probability sampling method, ladies and gentlemen. So these are the advantages and disadvantages, and let me give you the conclusion that reducing the sample errors is one of the major goal of any selection technique. Now, how to reduce that is a bigger challenge for us. A sample should be big enough to answer the research question, but not so big that the process of sampling becomes uneconomical. Because at the end of the day, we are digging the big hill, and in order to find a small rat or a small stone. So that is going to be non-economical. And in general, the larger the sample, as I indicated to you earlier, that the larger the sample, the smaller the sampling error would be. So that is why the better job you can do is that you can, to the extent possible, try to get a bigger sample within your budgetary resources, and decide appropriate sampling method based upon the study or the case that you are going to use. So these are some of the points I would like to share with you, ladies and gentlemen. With this, I would like to thank you one and all for giving me this opportunity. I must thank the organization, Africa Institute of Supply Chain Management Research, for providing me this platform to share some of my insight. Thank you one and all.
You are most welcome, Prof. Thank you very much for the insightful presentation you just shared. I believe that is very insightful and helpful going forward. And we were looking forward to it, and really indeed it has paid off. Now I'm going to take questions from our chat box, because we do have some questions which the audience have asked. Firstly, a question is from, it's Jonah. Jonah says that what is the recommended sample size for a pilot study? And he said, for example, in a case where the target population is, say, 35, and one has decided to work with a census for the study, how do they ensure the pilot study doesn't eat into the final number of units for study, given the ideal sample size is 30?
Well, that is a very good question, Vinolia, that you see, if the sample size is 30, and the pilots, probably it could be 5, it could be 8, or it could be 10. But remember that the number of people that are used for the pilot study, we're not going to use them again for the main study. So that is the limitation one has to look into. So therefore, you see, as I was indicating to you earlier, that there are a number of research professors, they suggest that particularly for the qualitative study, even 5 would be still okay. It's still manageable, it's still acceptable. So if you look into that kind of perspective, then for the pilot study, obviously 5 or 8 would be more than enough. I hope I answered the question, Vinolia.
Okay, sir, I think you did. We do have another question from Komakesh, which says, why is it that the scholars are not confident in studying a large number sample in qualitative research as compared to quantitative? Did you get
Can you repeat that? Why are the researchers are not confident in conducting qualitative study? Can you repeat that question?
Yes, definitely. It says, why is it that scholars are not confident in studying a large number sample in qualitative research as compared to quantitative?
Well, Vinolia, the reason being is that, you see, as I was indicating to you, number one is money. It's an expensive process. The more people that you are trying to contact, the more money, the more time, and the more resources you're going to spend. So one side, money, time, and resources, these are the 3 things which are crucial for any researcher, even not only for a researcher, individual researcher, but also for an organization. Now, we use Survey Monkeys, we use so many online platforms where we try to reach as many people as possible. But remember that how many people could able to respond? The response rate is also very important. If you contact 20,000 people, let's say we conduct a study at UNISA. UNISA is the largest university in the country, where closely about 400,000 students are there in different fields. Now, how do you reach 400,000? Even if you send the same survey to their email, official email of the university email, 400,000 people, how many people are going to respond? That is the biggest challenge actually in doing research nowadays. So it will be very difficult. Even I receive probably on an average about 10 to 15 different survey units on an average I receive every week. I don't respond even one also sometimes. If I respond one per a week, I'm doing really great. So therefore, the same thing is applicable. Everybody is busy with their own set of life, and taking part in the survey, at least it takes between half an hour to 1 hour. And if somebody should look into so many questions, and they should understand it, and they should respond accordingly as honestly as possible. So those are some of the challenges that we face while we collect the data. And I hope that is why the qualitative researchers in general, they try to select as little as possible than as more as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Now I'm going to give Gregory a chance to present their question.
No problem.
Gregory Namusonge, I see you have raised your hand, so you can now proceed with asking the question. Okay, we're going to continue with questions from our chat box. We do have another question from Efange. We'll come back to Gregory. We do have a question from Efange, which says, what criteria should we consider in order to carry out the pilot study?
Well, that is actually, it depends on, different points. For example, you would like to contact, let's say that the people who are receiving the social grant. Now, how you wanted to collect the data from that as part of your sample study? Let's say, for example, the people, let's say the old age pensioners, when they all come by and large, beginning of the month or end of the month. So that is the criteria. One criteria one can think of that, when the people are coming, that is the particular time. And maybe let's say it's 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. That is the kind of time frame one can look into. So there are so many criteria, and the venue is another criteria that which venue would be the appropriate venue. So there are a lot of criteria one can apply based upon the situation. So it is not a standard structure, a standard answer that we can give. It depends upon the situation, and then the presence of mind of the researcher. Then they can try to take appropriate decision in contacting those pilot, respondents. I hope that is clear to the gentleman who is asking the question.
I also believe so. I'm not sure if Gregory still wants to continue with their question or it was a mistake.
Yes. Am I being heard now?
I can see Gregory is still raising the hand. Yes, Gregory,
go on. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, Gregory, we can hear you.
Yes, I would like to appreciate the great work of Professor Ravinder for his presentation. I would just like to make some observations. One is about the idea of simple random sampling. The speaker did not clearly come up on why we use simple or why is it called simple. Two, I would like to appreciate if you can also explain under what circumstances do we use sampling with replacement and sampling without replacement? And then from there, would you recommend certain random certain types of sampling techniques, either probability or non-probability sampling? You would strongly recommend for PhD students, master students, and undergrad students. Thank you very much.
Well, Gregory, thank you very much for those questions. I really appreciate your questions. Particularly with regard to, let me start with the last one now. The master's and PhD students, they can use the probability sampling technique, and that would be more appropriate than going with the non-probability sampling technique. And so that is my recommendation. And with regard to the simple random sampling, why do we call it as a simple random sampling? Basically, the phenomena is simple and it's not a complex kind of, the word simple itself is an indication that it's not a complex phenomena that where everybody is getting an equal chance. It is as simple as that. Like I was telling that in my previous illustration, and maybe we are going to select one person, one lucky winner from that 100 sample, that everybody has got equal chance. So that is why we say it's a simple random sampling technique. I think with regard to the replacement and you see, samples can be replaced. It depends upon the situation that we are going to face. Once the data is collected, if the data is not adequate enough, if the target that we, the confidence level, if we do not reach 95% confidence level, so we can always go into a replacement. And so that is how we can try to deal with the matters. I think those are some of my perspectives, Gregory, and thank you very much for those questions.
I hope that Mr. Gregory is fine and well answered. We're going to continue with questions from our chat box. There's another question. I think it's a continuation of the first one, which you have answered from Fanje, which says, sorry about that, which says, what is the result of the pilot study? Sorry, let me start from the beginning. And what if the results of the pilot study are not favorable? Can we switch to another type of sampling, or should we target another group and redo the pilot study again?
Well, it depends, actually. There are lots of instances, if you're not successful and if you're not happy with whatever you collected and whatever you obtained, and if you would like to go with another set of pilot study, you can still go with that. But again, as I said, that it's going to be an expensive and time-consuming, because remember that once we have those pilots, let's say in the beginning we contacted 8 people, then you're not happy with that and you wanted to go with another 8 people. That means you are trying to slim the number of people you are going to reduce. You cannot use them in your real kind of research. So that is why people should be relatively careful that once they collect and then they try to make their own assessment, and they can learn. Sometimes they can learn from their mistakes, actually. That is why the pilot studies have been encouraged. So sometimes the way that the respondent is responding, the way this person is asking the question, so that is why, just for an experience purposes, we use the pilot studies, but nobody can stop you if you are not happy with one group of pilot members, and you can always go with the other group as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I don't see any more questions, only the comments. It says, thank you, Prof, for your excellent work. So I don't know if you have any remarks or any comments you'd like to make before we continue with the session, going to the conclusion. You can continue, say, if you do have any comments.
Well, I think I'm done now, Vanelia. Thank you very much for the question. I appreciate the questions that I received. They are very valuable, very pertinent, and they can also give some insight to somebody who doesn't ask any question. So they are very, very important, actually. Without questions and answers, any presentation is not complete. I appreciate that. And I think our African scholars, I encourage them that they need to focus on the research with their honesty and dedication. So that is what is important. No matter if somebody may be scared of using the quantitative techniques, and somebody may be comfortable in using the qualitative techniques. Doesn't matter what technique you are using. That depends upon your study scope and the research questions, hypothesis, and objectives. So one has to think about that. One has to look into that. But there are a lot of statisticians that we have. There are experts, software experts that we have. They can help with ANOVA. They can help us with structural equation modeling and so many things. So one has not bothered and too much worried about those things, but they have to do the honest job while they are doing the research. So that's what my humble suggestion to all our young and vibrant researchers in our African continent. Remember that in African continent, the number of researchers are very few, and we need to increase the size. Now, for example, in South Africa as a country, the number of researchers per 1 million people, we got about less than 550 or 600 people, or less than 600 people actually. So you can imagine if you are a researcher, you are doing your master's PhD, you are among the top 500 people in the whole country, or in the 1 million population. So we must take the credit of that and try to increase the size of the researchers, because Africa is not being represented in the world in terms of the quality research and the researchers numbers. So please, take this into consideration and try to become one day or the other day. Research is a laborious exercise, but one day or the other day you will get the name and fame. It's not an issue. So don't do the research for the sake of name and fame. You just do it out of your passion. Then something will happen to you, and you will smile. You'll be happy. You'll be proud of what you did. I think that would be my concluding remarks, Vinolia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we're reaching a conclusion, but before we go to our conclusion, I just want to ask if there's anyone, so that we don't leave anyone behind. Is there anyone who'd like to say maybe a comment or a question before we reach the conclusion? If there's anyone, you can just unmute yourself and ask.
Can I chip in something? Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Professor Ravinder, research methodology is the one which is giving us problems in Africa, and either academically or something else. And here we are now burdened with a lot of problems. And so we want this to be one of the priorities, especially for our institute. And because our institute is trying to reach out, and not just academics, but everybody else. So the more you make simple, like you have made, is very, very nice. And we are sure that the team will still reach you, so that we can still have more of this, because I'm in Eastern Africa, and we have extensions up to Ethiopia and downwards. We go to Burundi and all that. So we need much more of this. But the more that I find that you have done them is much better. But I want to tell you that we have a lot of challenges with research methods and approaches. So thank you very much. That's what I want just to appreciate. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that comment. I really appreciate that. I've been into East Africa also. I was working in Eritrea, Ethiopia. So I know that part, but they are very good researchers also, very good professors working from Eastern Africa, in America, and the European countries. They're all, known researchers actually. So just that, I know that we have challenges in Africa. We do have a lot of problems in terms of money, in terms of encouragement, in terms of, various other issues. But we will come out of that problems, with by supporting one another. And this initiation by Professor Ambe Marcus is a very good initiation. We all should support this kind of endeavors and this kind of initiations. So probably, one day, maybe in the coming couple of years, or maybe in the 5 years' time, we can try to reach as many people as possible, and we can try to produce a quality researchers from Africa. They are very resilient, very rigorous. They are very hardworking. even much better than the European and other country researchers. But just that we need to have kind of support, some kind of a kind of stimulation one way or the other way. So then we can try to motivate our young brothers and sisters to do the credible research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. There's a comment which says, thank you for the beautiful presentation. Hope to learn more from you. And another one is a comment from Pacey, which says, yes, also I agree with Charles. Since there are no more questions, or is there anyone before concluding? If there's anyone, they can proceed with their questioning.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Prof. This is Simon all the way from Bangkok. I mean, here in Asia, it's a bit like when you're doing research here, they probably want you to focus more on Asia. And if you're doing something that is related to Africa, they would not give you the grants because they want you to do something that would benefit their culture, their country. And I've seen so many students having problems with that. And because of that, they have a lot of difficulties to understand the methodology and how they're supposed to go about with their research. And even their own supervisors is giving them a hard time because their topic is not related to Asia or it's not related to this country. So I really want to appreciate that. I've learned a lot. And my next set of students that I will be proctoring, I will definitely make mention of some of your works. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you, Professor Simon.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else? You can just unmute yourself and say.
I also would like to acknowledge our young colleague and brother, Professor Ravikant from Ethiopia. Is also, I think, with us. Probably,
yes,
yeah.
I'm here, sir. It's very nice, sir.
Acknowledge your presence is very much valuable for us, Dr. Professor Ravikant.
Yes.
Much appreciated.
It's very nice, sir. The presentation was very nice, and the students are also got benefit out of it. We are here, not though I am only one person over here. There are few students are watching your presentation over there, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Very good. Good to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Professor Ravikant is from Ambo University in Ethiopia.
That's very, very nice of you, Prof. Ravi. And welcome to ASCA Group. You are welcome. And I will also update you and share more information with regard to sessions like this. We do have—
Sure, ma'am. It's my pleasure to join hands together for further research, and also any projects are also, we can go together. We can work together, ma'am, for the development of the African continent, as a whole. Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very, very much. We'll get in contact with you and share more details and information with regarding to upcoming events and also how ASCA works. So welcome to the family and feel free. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. It's my privilege, ma'am. It's my privilege. Thank you very much, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, now I believe that we have reached the end of our session, and it was very, very lovely having you, Professor Dr. Ravinder Rena. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for your availability and time. Now we have reached the end of our— Oh, thank you, sir. You're welcome. Before we close, I want everyone to please follow us on our social media pages for more information on upcoming events, on the recordings. We do have the recordings that we share with our audiences and everyone who would like to have a recording. We do have the recordings, and also with regards to the articles related to SCM We do put them on our social media platforms just to share knowledge with our audiences. We are African Institute. We are African Institute for Supply Chain Research on social media. You can follow us. It's ASCA. And also our next webinar is going to be on the 19th of August, 2021 on a topic collecting and analyzing secondary research data by Prof. Olobanji. So I would like for everyone to avail themselves because we do get an inside knowledge on this kind of sessions, and it's really an eye-opener to most of our audiences. So you don't want to miss this one as well. So it's going to be on the 19th of August. So I would like everyone to please join in on our next session, which is coming. And also thank you very, very much, Prof, again for the presentation. And I believe everyone will have a wonderful day going forward. And thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Prof. Ambe wants to make any final remarks, or the President?
Prof. Ambe, I'm not sure if you would
Okay.
like to say something. Prof. Ambe, you can say something for yourself, sir.
Thanks so much, Prof. Rena. I think you're putting me on the spot, and but in fact, the presentation went well. I wanted to be an observer and to see how the interactions were unfolding. And to my satisfaction, I think everything went very well. Thank you so much, Prof. You've always been there. I think there's so much that we can all do, getting into the practical aspects that we can be able to share with peers and also the M&D students that are opportune to be here and on this series with us. I want to note that we also opening up, should you feel that there are particular areas that you need further guidance on, or you need further engagement, you can communicate with Vinolia, and special sessions can be organized. In fact, Prof. Rena, Vinolia indicated to me that we could be able to have one session on a practical part, that we could take some practical aspects of supply chain management and go through with our peers and the participants. Dr. Ravi, thank you so much. I saw your email, and in fact, I was intending to engage
Thank you very much, sir.
sometime next week to see how we can be able to work and to be able to foster a collaboration in Ethiopia. There are a few peers that we are already trying to work with in Ethiopia, and we have a country representation of ISCA in Ethiopia. So we need to be able to work together to make sure that, because the objective of ISCA is to be able to build capacity on research, help organizations, and also the government to be able to improve on supply chain management practices. You know very well the challenges that we are facing. You know very well there are many universities that do not have programs like this. You know very well that given the challenges in the continent in addressing the sustainable development goals, as well as Africa Agenda 2063, supply chain management is a in driving that. So on that note,
it's my pleasure to join hands together for the future endeavors and for the development of the continent as a whole, sir.
Thank you
it's
so
my
much.
pleasure. Whatever it may be, I definitely support whatever the idea you have. We will discuss ins and outs, and then definitely synergy is there, sir. If we are together, we'll become stronger when we work together, sir. Joining hands together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Reverend Charles Olo will be in touch also with you and with the team. Prof. Rena, thank you so much, and colleagues, thank you very, very much for your support.
It's a pleasure, Prof. Marcus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yes, I can see that Prof. Rena it's about to leave now. I'm going to release everyone. You can say your goodbyes. Thank you for attending. Thank you very, very much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very
Bye
much.
for
It
now.
is very enriching. Bye.
Good day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.